Why don't we start with roll call?
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to take notes. Karen St. John.
Here.
Julie Donham.
She is not here.
Mary Morgan.
Here.
Alex Crowley.
Here.
Jackie Yenna.
Here.
Scott Wright.
I'm here.
Tracy Gates is not here. Kate Rosenbarger is not here. And then I think that's it for board. And so I'm Jane Cooper-Smith, staff. Rest of the staff, do you want to announce yourselves?
John Starwood, staff.
Larry Allen, legal staff.
I'm Connor Hurtridge, Historic Preservation. I work with the BUEA Historic Facade Grant.
And Kevin? Kevin Curran, staff. And then we have two more coming in right now, if you can. So we've got Paul Ash. Paul, can you announce yourself?
There we are.
Okay, hi. So Paul Ash.
It was the date that gave it away that, oh, whoops.
Yeah, and then I see Shatoya Moss representing city staff, CFRD. And I think that's everybody. Okay.
Okay.
So
we'll move on to approval of minutes. In the packet, it looks like, Jane, if you want to.
Can you all see it?
These are the November minutes. Are the December on here too? The agenda mentions November, December.
They should both be there.
I did not see the December minutes.
No, I didn't either.
Lord, okay. Well.
So why don't we just go ahead and approve or review November minutes, and you can bring December next time.
Okay. I'm
Move
confused.
to approve the November minutes.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded approval for the November 2020 minutes. We take a voice roll and votes, right?
We do a roll call, so I'll go ahead and call it. Karen St. John.
Yes, approve.
Mary.
Yes.
Morgan. Alex Crowley.
Yep.
Jackie Yenna.
Yes.
Scott Wright.
Yes.
Paul Ash.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Kate just got here, so.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that. And we can move on to the financial report. Kevin or Jane?
I'll get us started, and then if we have any questions I can't answer, I will pass it along to Kevin. So, sorry, I'm like admitting people while we're chatting. Okay, so you'll notice some amounts have moved around in these notes, but it's really exciting this month because everything is up to date, correct. The payables and receivables reflect outstanding 2020 transactions. So, you know, we did our best to get all of the payables out the door, but when you float checks out there and are also waiting for people to sign them over the holidays, it doesn't always go as planned. So, business loan interest is, sorry, I'm still admitting people. Kate's stuck in the waiting room. Okay, business loan interest is pretty straightforward. That's the interest earned on our, not our RRF loans, our pre-existing BUEA loans. I think we have like 5 of them. 1 was paid off. Late fees, those are late fees associated with those loans. One big change is we now have a balance listed in RDC participation fee. So this was taken out of the zone membership fees and transferred into RDC participation fee as income. And then you'll see we have a correlating expense in the RDC fee category. So this will happen exactly this way next year. When we receive EZID payments, Kevin will be able to split them. So the RDC payment will be really visible as it's coming in and going out. So that should add some clarity when we're trying to understand what our assets, what the BUEA's specific assets look like. So total income, $711,279. I'm not sure why that 6898 showed back up in dues and subscriptions. That's actually income. So Kevin will follow up offline. I'll make a note of that. Facade grants, we did get the Ivy Tech facade grant paid. So of the $30,000 earmarked in 2020, we sent almost 26,000 out the door. Recovered forward grants, those are the Recover Forward Arts grants. So we haven't paid quite half of those funds. I mean, we've paid the entirety of the $45,975, but of the Recover Forward program, we earmarked, I think, $112 for those arts grants. So we're making significant progress in getting those resources out into the community. School grants, that's our one-time MCCSC grant. Zone arts grants, those represent our two things. That's our standard $40,000 grant line, and then it also represents what we pay out in the city grant line, which is a recurring annual expense. So the way I would read these is the zone arts grants line is what we budget annually. Recover Forward grants line, those are for arts, but they are a one-time expense. Moving down, the rest of it's pretty straightforward, I think. These have gone out the door, our Ivy Tech and SBDC payments. The management expense has been booked. And then here we have business and resident scholarships for a total of $13,751.39. Lemonade Day, miscellaneous is the now Beacon rebranding effort. Total special projects $7,500. Total expense of $622,508. Net income $94,734. So even though we had a really unusual year and sent $350,000 additional dollars out the door, we still earned income. So that's great. Looking at the balance sheet, first, well, we know this is a sweep account, so the negative balance is just what was happening in that moment. Total assets at First Financial are $1,580,000. Total cash and cash equivalents, $2.1 million. So that feels healthy to me. Accounts receivable. So as we discussed all year, we were working on receivables and payables, and this is a true receivable that's coming in from Catalent for their TIF, RDC TIF payment. And we'll have a matching expense. Sorry, waiting room still going. Kate's having trouble. And then here we have, any questions on the above?
I have a question.
Sure.
This is with the profit and loss
Mhm.
comparison. Can you talk about, so there's a line item RDC participation fee under income,
Yes.
and then there's an RDC TIF zone participation fee under expense.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just
Yeah.
help me understand what's going on there?
Yep. So I'm going to back the frame way up because I think this is a really useful question. we earn our income from the tax incentive programs that we support. Those are for personal property taxes and real property taxes. For the savings that a business sees, they pay a percentage back to the BUEA if they're located in the enterprise zone. If their address is in the enterprise zone and also in the TIF, then they also pay a fee to the RDC. So there are two separate, I mean, really there are three separate participation fees, potentially. Everyone has an AIEZ fee and everyone has a BUEA fee. And then they may also have an RDC TIF fee. So what happens and why I think the record keeping has been kind of jumbled in the past is that businesses pay these we ask for them in a specific way and they pay them in a variety of ways. Sometimes they pay one check to the AIEZ and lump the rest to us. Sometimes they pay the RDC and pay AIEZ and BUEA to us. It just comes a whole bunch of different ways. And so we have to isolate what they're paying, when, and then make sure that we're redirecting the appropriate funds to the appropriate recipient. So what this line shows is the paid in 2020. This means that $147,685 of the fees were for businesses located in the TIF. And so this is effectively a pass-through line. So it hits our account and then it hits the RDC. If we scroll down to the expense line, you'll notice that it's quite larger. And this is because in processing the 2020 payment to the RDC, we noticed that the 2019 payment had not been processed. So we had to realize both of those payments this year. And I think, again, that was just a staff turnover issue. These payments are usually made in the fall after the sort of three-way reconciliation happens.
So normally those two lines would be the same.
Yeah, and in fact, you can see when we go back to, oops, I went too far. Looking at 2019, this is how it had always been done in the past, where everything is lumped under zone membership fees, which is confusing because it doesn't reflect what income is actually belongs to the BUEA. So it'll be split the way we have in 2020 now and going forward. So I think that's a great improvement. It should help us with having a more precise snapshot. Any other questions related to that? That kind of gets at one of the core, how we earn income is one of the core questions that I think is a mystery about the BUEA often. Okay. I think we made it almost down to other assets, which represent all of our loans. These represent our Rapid Response Loan Fund loans, and then our other pre-existing loans. Two noteworthy items, the Allery, which some of you may have heard has changed ownership. They paid their balance in full, and then the project school had an overpayment, and so we were able to get that back to them and clear that line out. Yeah, total assets 2.5 million.
Jane, when we look at those notes receivable, are they all in good standing? I think there's one that is probably past due, but we're looking into why that is and what that's about. But are the rest of them all in good standing?
Yeah, they are, and I communicate. I mean, none of the RRF loans are due, and all the others are in good standing. I mean, that just leaves MyFin and Michael's.
I'm sorry.
That just leaves the TAP and Michael's. And actually, Michael's Uptown will be coming to us in February to request a period of forbearance, but I didn't feel like we had enough communication or documentation ready to talk about that today. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. And then this is just previous year comparison of liabilities and equity. Accounts payable, again, this reflects an actual amount. Those are all the RDC payments. And then there's another grant and a few scholarship payments that are still going out for 2020. Any more questions about the financials?
I would like to just commend Jane and Kevin and Kevin's staff for really cleaning this up. It's something we've been working towards for a long time. So I know that I've spoken with Julie, who couldn't be here today. I know she's really happy too. She hasn't reviewed these, but she and I were working really hard with Kevin and Jane, and they've put in a lot of time to clean this up. So I think we're in a much better place in terms of clarity and transparency. Not that there was a lack of transparency. There was just a lack of clarity more than anything else. And they've really been lifting up rocks and looking underneath and trying to clean up the whole thing. So I really appreciate the work you've done. So thank you to both of you.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and it feels good to be able to, it's just appropriate. It feels good and appropriate. So thanks for your counsel and helping us work out our processes.
Is there a motion to, do we want to go ahead and motion to accept the financials? Or did you want to get into oh yeah, you have the overview later. So we'll look for a motion from anyone to accept the financials as presented for December 31, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve these financials. Jane, if you want to take the roll.
I will. Karen?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Alex?
Yep.
Jackie?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
I think Tracy joined us.
Yes.
Hi, Tracy. Welcome. I think Kate joined us. Kate was having trouble getting in. I'll pass over her. Paul?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, great. And then the last sort of, this is still financials director's report. Karen, if it's okay to glance at this.
Yeah.
You know, last year we had so much money kind of going out with Recover Forward that we wanted to track our commitments more precisely than we had done in the past. So I kind of made up a spreadsheet that was fine, but for 2021, I thought it would be easier for us to just pull the same format from our budgeting document. So that's what we'll do going forward. We can track against what we've budgeted and what we've sent out. So this column is committed. The gray column is approved, and then the next column is committed. I can move those headings around next time so they're easier to see. So for example, I signed a commitment for Lemonade Day. We've approved one new business scholarship. We have been talking with Dimension Mill about the day passes. So we've approved $2,200 in grant funding. So the $2,200 plus $25 for Lemonade Day takes us up to this $4,700 grant making total. So those are for our annual recurring grant making expenses. And then the rapid response stuff all falls under this one-time category. So we show what balance we have for 2021, and we have not committed new funds under these categories yet. So I think this will be an easier way for us to see month to month, you know, what people are applying for and what we're committing to sending out the door. And then eventually what the actual lines should match up with our budget lines. Does anybody have questions about this 2021 commitments document? Okay, I don't think we need to spend forever on it.
Great. I just want to say again, it's a really nice improvement to the financial reporting. So I really appreciate, Jane, that you've taken time to do this. It'll be a lot more straightforward for us, that we can tie approvals to what we've approved on our budget, so we don't get out of line and out of sync with what we intended to do. And so this will be a lot more clear for the future, so for this year. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great.
So we'll move on to the director's report, the grant making program overview, existing and new programs. And Jane, I think that's you.
It is. I wondered though, Karen, if you want to bump up the election of officers, since that's essential, and
yeah, we can do that. So we would be, for the board, under new business, election of officers is a little bit lower on the agenda. And I think that if the board's okay with that, we would go ahead and get that done now, because we have to get that done in this meeting. Although we're going pretty quickly, but I think your suggestion, Jane, is that the discussion around the grant making program overview may be longer, and we may run out of time and people have to get off the meeting. Yep. So we'd miss out on the election of officers. So yeah, let's go ahead and just move that up on the agenda. So do you want to lead that? We have, we have chair and vice chair and secretary and treasurer. And currently the chair is Julie Donham. The vice chair is me. The secretary is Mary. Yes, I'm looking for a nod from Mary. Yes. And our treasurer is, I'm sorry. Do we have a treasurer, or do we just have Jane?
I think we only have 3 officers right now.
Right.
The treasurer is statutorily appointed. That is Kevin. Kevin is the treasurer for the.
Okay.
Thank you. So Kevin is our treasurer, statutorily appointed. So we will not vote him out of his statutory appointment.
And
so we're looking at those 3. So Julie is not able to attend this meeting, and she missed the last one due to some medical issues. I can report, I believe last I heard she's doing well and is recovering, but is not able to be here today. And so I would like to suggest that we consider, she's definitely interested in BUEA and supports what we do here. So I would like to suggest for now that she's nominated in absentia for that seat. And then once we are able to talk with her, we can reassess, as opposed to not including her now in moving on. Does anyone have any thought around that on the board?
I'd second that. And personally, I'm satisfied with the people we've got in the office now.
Okay.
So am I.
Okay. So we could say that that was a motion and a second, but I do want to make sure people have an opportunity to step up if they would like to put their name in the hat for president or chair and vice chair and secretary. Is there anyone on the board who's not currently in those positions that would be potentially interested in taking one of those on? So
I might just note, Karen, that Mary, I think you were being really charitable with your time when you stepped in as secretary early last fall or late last summer. And I wanted to thank you again for doing that. And so I don't know if we're considering all 3 positions at a time, but Mary may or may not wish to continue in that role. I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed Mary was interested. Mary, are you interested in continuing in that role?
I'm happy to continue, but if there's somebody else who would prefer to do it, that is totally fine with me.
Okay.
So I will say thus far, the duties have not been at all onerous.
great. Well, thank you, Mary, for your willingness. Is there anyone else who would like to put their name in for chair or vice chair or secretary? So let's wait a minute here in case, I'm not seeing anyone else on the chat or speaking up. Okay. All right, so as long as Larry doesn't interrupt and say we're doing this incorrectly, I think Jackie made a motion for the slate of, if you want to state that, Julie Donham.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment, but I'll make that a motion if you like.
Okay, okay.
I just don't want anybody take my comment and say, well, no, I don't want to run. If somebody wants to jump in there, that's fine.
Yeah, no, we're absolutely open. There's no, if anyone wants to be vice chair, please speak up. But I see a lot of muted button icons on Beebles Square. So, okay. So I think that's, Jackie, are you making that a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second from Paul. So that's Julie Donham as chair, Karen St. John, me as vice chair, and Mary Morgan as secretary. And if Jane, you want to call the roll?
I'll do it. Karen St. John,
Yes.
Mary Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Crowley,
Yes.
Jackie Enna,
Yes.
Scott Wright,
Yes.
Tracy Gates,
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger. Hi, Kate.
Yes.
Hi. Paul. Ash.
Yes.
Thank you.
And definitely
Wow.
not all. I mean, I was vice chair and that didn't work.
Oh, you might say that, but I don't think the rest of the organization would agree. I'm sure you
I'm
did a
sure
great
you-
job.
Yeah, I'm sure you were great. Well, thank you, everybody. We will move forward with those individuals. Thanks, Mary, and in absentia, Julie, for stepping in again to do that, and really to everyone on the board for continuing to serve. It really is very meaningful, and you all really have great contributions. So I know I really appreciate everyone on the board and the contributions they make, as well as for staff. So thank you. So we'll check off new business on the agenda, and we're going to go back up to reports from officers and committees, going down to the grant making program overview. So back to Jane again.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this existing programs and new programs, really we're kind of looking at all of these things together. And ultimately we had two new programs in our budget discussion last December. One was for the Dimension Mill Day Pass program, and then one that is up for discussion today would be for some anti-racism initiatives. So we're kind of looking at what we're doing already in context, just A, because it's useful, and B, because we have new board members. And then we'll get into a more detailed discussion about what we might be able to start doing. So one of the programs with the most activities this year is the Bloomington, the Business Economic Enhancement Scholarship, which Brittany has cleverly observed can be called the Bees. So that's what we call it now. And I think it's really cute, and maybe we'll market it that way eventually. Records go back to 2014 from what I can tell, even though I think this program probably predated that. Lifetime awards, so that would be through 2014, were $34,800, and then paid out was $19,822. So that number was actually lower than what I was anticipating. If you take 2020 out of the equation, the total amount awarded was $16,800, with $9,258 actually paid out. So more than half paid out. I guess I can talk about that a little more specifically. Let me do that overview. So these scholarships are awarded to organizations that are located in the zone. They have a $1,200 maximum lifetime allotment. So a business can win the award once and can spend up to $1,200. The purpose is to further the economic stability of the business organization, which has operated within the zone for at least 12 months. So to be eligible, a business also has to have been located in the zone for 12 months. And this to further the economic stability of the business or organization, that line kind of gets at how we frame a lot of our grant making, which is to allow the businesses to be, and the residents to be kind of self-determining. So we don't say exactly what they can do with this funding, but we like to hear their proposals. And as long as they commit to, you know, an increase in economic stability, I think that's the main goal. Funds are awarded on a rolling first come, first served basis until exhausted. Scholarships may be used to pay for economic development classes, business workshops, professional organization membership dues, or conference registration fees for business owners or employees. And then the last line is just to say, we don't approve funds, we don't approve scholarships retroactively. So they have to apply for the scholarship and then we can pay for forthcoming expenses. In terms of the categories that are paid, when I was looking back through the documents, I noticed there were a lot more workshops. So it seems like when travel was something that was a possibility, we did pay for a lot of conference registration. I think that was really useful. And then this year we've had a lot of trainings and a lot of membership dues. So I think it's been put to good work. I think, yeah, go ahead. Somebody was going to have a question.
That was me, Jane. So this is really great and helpful. I know from the last meeting, we had questions about the scholarship program and what it looked like. So I really appreciate you bringing this in such a timely manner back to the board so we can really understand this. So thank you. I wanted to ask just about the third bullet point. So when it says that it may be used for these things, are those the only things that it can be used for? Because when I look at the beginning where it says that it can be used for professional development opportunities, I don't know that the things listed on the third bullet point aren't really all professional development opportunities. So if someone wants to go work towards a certificate in some particular area of a company, I don't really see that fitting into economic development classes or business workshops or dues or a registration for a conference. So someone, let's say, wants to do online education to get a certification that will help them in the business. Is that okay? Or is this meant to say this is what it may be used for, or it's these things in addition to other education related to professional development?
Well, I think if you take this along with the resident scholarship, it makes more sense. So an employee may be able to receive funds for a training, but it has to be training that will help that employee support that zone business and that zone. So for example, at Hopscotch, there's an expensive roaster, it's called Q grader certification. And we haven't done it, but like that would be a certification that we would seek for an individual employee that would also support our business, and it would give us some leverage in the way that we process coffee that we don't currently have. So it would support the economic development of our business, even though it would be a certification that also goes to an individual and supports that person.
Okay, so if Hopscotch applied under the Business Economic Enhancement Scholarships, that would be approved in the third bullet point under economic development classes? Is that what you're saying?
I think that would be included under either economic development. No, I don't think it's an economic development class. I think it's a business workshop. It's a certification that would come.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the wording, I
some
agree.
of that
I think,
wording might need to be tightened up a little bit too. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think so too. Because economic development classes almost sounds like maybe a class in learning how to do economic development.
that's what it reads like to me. And to be honest, I thought this might come out of this conversation. I thought we might like to tighten up some of the language. And so if the board would like, so I haven't located the program guidelines for this. The program guidelines have always been kind of part of the application. That's how we've interpreted them. And this is the language that goes with that. But
I don't know, what do board members think about that and some of the language there? Are there any comments from other folks?
I'm not all that, not really upset by the language. I think that the language, kind of leaves some leeway or a little bit of leeway for us to kind of interpret what our constituents are kind of looking for. So I'm not fully, I don't know if we need to get much more specific, I'd say, especially given who's going to be applying and their particular goals. But I actually think that a broad sort of scope will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with the language as is. I think part of it hinges on the may versus shall distinction, and may seems to me to be a little bit more open so that it's not as constrictive to exclusively things that fit into those categories. But those seem to me to be guidelines, but that there's some discretion involved. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think if you can, I agree with Scott, if you can just make it as broad as possible, which I think you're trying to do there, but somehow convey that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that was my only question about it.
So does the board desire for me to rework some of the language or leave it as is then? Sorry, that wasn't clear.
I think I'm hearing support to leave it as is.
Yeah, okay.
As long as you feel like, to Scott's point, it's as broad and inviting, really, within limits, within the constraints of what the program does.
I do, and I think that in the overall description, the question of whether something furthers the economic stability of the business is a pretty great guiding question, and the applicants they answer that question specifically within their forms that they submit. So I think it's fine. Mm-hmm. We haven't had problems.
Yeah.
And then when we did have the question, for example, about advertising, I brought it to the board for discussion and we discussed.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, great. The other thing I was gonna say, I noticed that in the past, we would issue awards of $1,200, and then businesses maybe would submit a single expense. And this year, I've been sort of like nurturing the relationships or the awardees a little more and trying to get them, because it's a once in a lifetime award, get them to get the most out of the $1,200. So if they have additional approved uses, then I try to get them to use it for multiple things. So for example, one business used this for their SafeServe certification, which was a few $100s, and then also a particular type of marketing education. They took some marketing classes, and I thought those were they're not completely unrelated, but they're pretty different uses. But I thought it was great. It helped them kill two birds with one stone and made sure that the full 1,200 was exhausted. So right. I think that going forward, the awarded amount and paid out amounts will continue to grow closer together.
Great.
So yeah, the next program is the Economic Independence Scholarship. This is the resident scholarship. So anyone who has lived in the zone for 12 months is eligible for this award. I was going to say once in a lifetime. The application is, reads as 2 semesters for $600. So you can receive $1,200 once in a lifetime. It has to be broken up over 2 semesters. So I think wording it this way is fine, but we kind of consider those 2 times $600. We consider that a single unit for the sake of our record keeping. These scholarships can be applied to any course, college, trade school, other special training that advances the applicant's skills as a member of the workforce. The BUEA will pay for 2 classes, including textbooks, or up to $600 a semester, whichever is less, up to a lifetime maximum of $1,200 in educational assistance. Funds are limited and awarded on a first come, first served basis. And again, applications must be received at least 1 month prior to the start of classes. And then here I've included, we had questions about what the real cost of credit hours are. So at Ivy Tech, the individual credit hour is broken out $149.55, and then the course fees ranged really wildly. So an average course, or not an average, but the baseline course fee is $25, $525. There weren't too many that were up that high. That was like an automotive class. So automotive welding classes with high safety factors were kind of up on in that end. And then 100 seemed like much more of a baseline ballpark. And then there's a $75 technology fee assessed. So if you have a course fee of $100, it's a 3 credit hour course, and you have the technology fee, you're up to, oh, I didn't do that right. Sorry, $524.10, and that's not including your textbooks. So, yeah, that's just a ballpark. And then at IU, they report tuition annually, so it breaks down and includes all of the fees for $311.75. So a 3 credit hour class at IU would more than exhaust the $600. The $600 wouldn't cover a cost or cover a class. So this is just context for the discussion. We had talked about potentially raising the amount to $750 twice for a total award of $1,500 lifetime. And I think I included the Ivy Tech and IU classes because I think they're on we see those most frequently and they represent the higher end of the spectrum. I think if someone is taking a one-off accounting class, that might not cost quite as much. Conversely, you know, I did a 6 Sigma training recently and maybe this would have covered half of that. So does the board have feedback on the $600 award amount, or would you like me to keep going and tell you what we've done over the last 5 years?
I'm in favor of raising it, given that we have the funding to do that, and that it just seems to be, it would be a better reflection of what the cost is, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, the budgeted amount is the limiter. It's not the number of people. So if a person only uses $500 of the $1,200 award, if that's all they apply for, then we can apply the remaining balance to another student.
So we budgeted, looks like we budgeted $9,000 for that, Jane. So if someone did a maximum of 1,500, we could award to 6 people this year, if it was the maximum, knowing that it may not be.
Yeah.
Is there any other support from the board to increase the amount to $1,500?
I'd support that too.
I concur.
And Larry, is that something we would need to vote on? I mean, I would think just from a policy standpoint, to give Jane something to stand on, it would be good to do some board approval, but I don't know if legally we would need to vote on that.
Best practice would be to do a resolution just to make it clear, unambiguous, that,
Okay.
that you're expanding the parameters.
Great. Okay, so if someone wants to make a motion to increase the zone resident scholarship limit to a higher amount, we could entertain that at this point.
Move to increase to 1,500.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Paul and a second by Jackie to increase the zone resident scholarship to $1,500 total, $750 a semester. So we're gonna need to take a roll on that, Jane.
Okay. Karen,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Paul.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
okay, great. So I know we still have more to do. It's 10 till 1. If we wanna move on, Jane, to the next historic facade grant.
Yep. Okay. I'll do a really quick intro, and then Connor, maybe just 5 minutes or so when you're ready. This program awards up to $10,000 per facade with 100% matching required. The purpose of this program really is just zone beautification. There's a lot of historic buildings within the zone. Connor, maybe you should just jump in, but I think at the start of this program, there were a lot of buildings on the courthouse square in the vicinity that needed some attention, and this was really a way to just help address that.
I can jump in here, Jane. So I'm Connor Hurtridge, Historic Preservation Program Manager, and I'm the city staff member. I work alongside Jane on facilitating this particular grant. So as she was saying, really the eligibility to qualify for this grant, you have to be a commercial, industrial, or residential investment property that is listed on the historic survey or deemed historic by city staff. You also have to be, your property has to be located in the urban enterprise zone as well. And the grant is up to $10,000 per facade. It is a matching grant. It's awarded on a rolling basis, first come, first serve. Last year, we completed 2 grants. One was for the east and the southern facade of 122 South Walnut, which is the Waldron Arts Center. And the second one we did was for Secretly Group. They're building at 213 South Rogers. But Jane and I have been talking a lot about this grant, and we've kind of noticed that there's been declining participation in the grant, and we've kind of gone back and forth on why that may be, and different ideas of how to kind of get more use out of it. So we are working on kind of revamping it, and we'll be coming to you guys probably your next meeting with a presentation and some more ideas of exactly how we can make this grant work a little more.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and it has done really great work for the community. I mean, when you look at the courthouse square, a lot of the buildings that that really shine have received this. So, yeah. Okay. Is it all right to move on to new programs?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I put the dimension mill first because I think it's the most straightforward. It was a budget line of $1,000. They will sell us 60-day passes for that amount. And then I will basically sign them out from City Hall for zone businesses or nonprofits working within the enterprise zone. I'm actually really excited about this. I think it's a great way. A lot of our zone businesses are sole proprietorships. They're just getting started. I can certainly speak to the experience as a food service establishment operator when you don't have office space to work in, but you really, need it in order to kind of like get some of your non-service related work done. So I think this will be really successful once we launch it and do some promotion of it. So I think it'll be a great relief to businesses who don't have access to office space. Conversely, they're not just getting office space, they're getting plugged into a startup network, a network of entrepreneurship. And the mill has just done a ton of really great programming. So I think it's going to go really far to loop additional people into the mill and the mill services, while also, on the flip side, really promoting zone businesses and getting enterprise zone out there. So I listed a limit of 1 pass monthly because I think if a company is allowed to become a repeat offender, there's going to be a more likelihood of relationship building. So I'm not sure how you all would feel about that frequency. Conversely, I want there to be the opportunity for a lot of people to take advantage of the day pass. So that was why I limited it to one pass monthly.
Jane,
Yeah.
is that 1 pass per business or per employee?
I would say per business, but I'm open. I was thinking of it as per business.
And is there do you see any advantage or disadvantage in limiting the total number of, so like,
we could do that.
Could a business have a pass indefinitely once a month?
Well, I mean, I think we can cap it however we want to. Could you express that in the flip, like a single business would be limited to 12, or they could do it up to 1 pass monthly with a cap at 5 passes? Or what were you thinking?
Oh, I wasn't thinking anything in particular. I just wondered if that was something that you had decided not to do, or if there was any kind of, I just think we should maybe think about it, and it might make sense. Or just maybe give it a try, and it might not be an issue to have, there might not be any need to cap it. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of left it really open-ended to just see how it goes this year, but I think it would be very reasonable to cap it. So I would just follow the board's advice on that.
I think that's a really good point that Mary's making, is to figure out a way to cap it, because it could be like 1 per business. If your company has 5 employees, seems like maybe that's fair. But if your company has 40 employees, 1 seems not super helpful. Although you could argue that if you have 40, you maybe have office space, but they're all working remotely anyway. I don't know. You could also just cap it as a certain number per business, like 3, but that's it. You don't get more than that. Like, it's a one-time. So there are different ways to look at it. You could just say, we want to promote businesses 1 time experiencing the mill to see if they like it and if it's helpful, in which case you'd want to limit it to a business, people at a business, however many number is appropriate. They only get to do it once. Or you're saying some other limit and somebody can come back month after month, and you're limiting the number of months. So I'm not sure what the answer is there.
I kind of like the idea of doing a per business limit of like 5, which if you're small, gives you a fair amount of exposure. If you're larger, it's less exposure. But again, you should if you have 40 employees, you probably have some infrastructure and maybe are closer to being able to purchase your own membership. But it would be an incentive for somebody to try the mill if they haven't done it yet. So I still think it supports that kind of cross-pollination in the same way. So I guess it would be then up to the business to budget their use of the day passes. I worry a little bit if we don't put a monthly limit also, then they'll be used up in the first quarter or 6 months, but we could also just watch it happen and see how it goes.
I'm on the board of the mill. I should know this, but I just joined the board I don't remember. Do they offer like your free first time you go is free? Does anyone know if that's, I don't know if they do that.
They used to.
Yeah, so like you could try it out for free once, and then if you want to go back, this is now your opportunity to go back a second time for
Yeah.
someone at a business. So, yeah.
I'm going to recommend that we say 1 per month with a limit of 5 per business, knowing that they also get a free trial from the mill. Would you guys? Okay.
Sounds good.
Jane, I just one question about that, and I probably should have talked to you about this before, but
That's okay.
in terms of user behavior, you know, it's a little disjointed to be going once a month, maybe. You know, I just wonder if a little bit more flexibility on that may make more sense in terms of getting into the rhythm of the place. If you are the individual, right? So like you could say maximum of 3 over a 3-month period or something, you know, so you're just kind of, you're giving people the opportunity to go in, do a couple days at a time. It might actually have in the end, what we're trying to do is really both help our individuals in our zone, but also just to some degree also help the mill grow its membership. And I wonder whether that might give more rhythm to the use of the place by the individual.
Yeah, I like that suggestion.
So
I think that would be good too. Like if you're working on something that you maybe need like meetings 3 days in a row or something, you could just go ahead and do that. I think I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is that we would limit it to say 3 or 5 for a business, and you use them whenever you want, whether it's 3 days in a row or once a month for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Seeing Alex nod his head. I don't know if Kate, that was what you were thinking.
Yes.
And we'll learn about how people use it, and we can tweak it later on. I think right now, just kind of trying something loose and see what happens.
Is this something that requires a vote, or since it was approved in the budget?
Well, it's
okay?
really just how to spend that $1,000, right? It's not really a program we're talking about in a way, like I don't know if Larry has another opinion on that, but it's really just how we're spending our $1,000 in the budget. That's just a one-time, one-off, as opposed to setting up a larger scholarship program.
Right. I mean, I think, you know, Jane, you and Alex can figure out what makes sense. I'm fine with that. You know, we've budgeted this amount, and generally the guidelines are there. So yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other questions on that program?
Okay. We have some people that need to leave at 1:15. So I know you want to go through this. And it looks like Scott has to leave now. So as much as you can get done in the next 10 minutes would be great.
Okay, great. So we talked on a very surface level at the budget meeting about potentially including a small budget line for diversity, equity, inclusion, or anti-racism pilot program. And the board wanted to see more detail before we earmarked or budgeted for this program specifically. So the board placed that money in an unspecified grant-making budget line and decided that we should talk about this and then approve it potentially. So what I did was I made a sort of more specific or more detailed memo for the board to kind of establish what's happening in a broader context, very generally, but a broader context, and then kind of institutionally here in Bloomington, and then what's happening with small businesses. So I guess I would want to know if everybody had the chance to read this.
I think you probably get a mixed response. Probably some people have had time and some haven't. So if you want to just sort of really kind of generally go through that, I think some people, I read it, probably some people to as well, and maybe you could go down to the next part, which really talks about what your
Sure.
proposal is.
Yep. So the background is just that, we're at a time in history where we have new information in a really detailed and transparent way about what longstanding systemic racism and institutional bias have done to minorities economically. Then I cite the state code that gives us our marching orders, and our marching orders are to serve as a catalyst for zone development and to support residents and businesses in a nutshell. I see a lot of flexibility in there. The next paragraph kind of describes how Black and Brown owned businesses were further disadvantaged in response to COVID. So they were already statistically more likely to be sole proprietorships, and then sole proprietorships.
Can you, there's chicken down there. Can you go ahead and pull that up?
Tracy.
No.
Hi, Tracy. I think you need to mute your phone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's okay.
And then one of the most striking statistics, in my opinion, is that average net worth of a white family is 10 times higher than that of an average Black family. So white family may be looking at, on average, $171,000 in assets, and then a Black family would have $17,150 to that amount. Okay, in Bloomington, I talk about the poverty rate and how African Americans are represented disproportionately in the below 50% of the poverty rate. So we have a problem in Bloomington in supporting people of color. And I think our local institutions are starting to address this. Bloomington's Community and Family Resources Department has issued a draft of its plan to advance racial equity, which cites the following goals: change existing services within the city using racial equity best practices, end disparities in city government hiring and promotions, strengthen outreach and public engagement for communities of color, provide equitable access to city services to all residents, set and meet citywide contracting goals for minority-owned businesses. And then IU also released an anti-racist agenda framework. Again, their goals are to identify, attract, and retain diverse faculty, staff, and students, foster a climate of anti-racism, promote anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion in teaching public service.
Jane, if I can just, sorry, I really apologize for interrupting you. I am really getting concerned about the time, because I do want people to be able to be in on this. And so if you could just jump down maybe to the proposal, then we could get some board members who I think need to get off the call. To, and also, I also don't want to lose a quorum for a vote on this too. So.
Agreed. Okay, so we have a small budget line. It's $5,000. I had two goals with this. One is to support businesses in doing some kind of formal training or solution finding. Let the businesses be self-determining in that regard. So maybe some businesses will want to do an audit of their operations. Other businesses may have identified a training that they would like to do, and they can pay for that. Other businesses may have found a free training that they could do, but they have to pay their staff members to participate in it. I would like for this grant to be able to reimburse payroll for the training. The cap is low, but again, it's a starting point. So the baseline cap is $1,000 per organization. I added an incentive in order to facilitate cross-collaboration among zone businesses and also increase the level of discourse around anti-racism efforts within businesses. So if two businesses want to work together and do a training together, or nonprofits, they can increase their funding amount by 25%. So a single business would get $1,000, but say the chamber and DBI wanted to do a training together, then they have $1,250 apiece or $2,500 together. So it's a multiplier that I think sends a really powerful message and actually helps foster the type of collaboration that the BUEA has always, we've always wanted to foster that. And I think this is a nice place to do that. One thing I think I didn't specify, the reason I think we need this as a separate granting program beyond the Business Economic Enhancement Scholarship is that we have awarded these scholarships to tons of zone businesses at this point. We had a lot of activity this year, and that's a once in a lifetime award. And we want to make sure that all businesses have the opportunity to participate in anti-racism training and to be able to really improve and adopt best practices in their own organizations, whether it's for staff or their products or how they interface with customers. So yeah, I'll leave it there and take any questions.
Let's raise the cap, and maybe we can vote on this in the next meeting so that everybody has a chance to digest this. But yeah, let's raise the cap.
I fully agree with raising the cap. I really think that you put a lot of thought into this, and really I like what your the proposals that you've got there, and the cross collaboration stuff, getting organizations involved with small business owners, minority owned businesses, that type of stuff. So I really appreciate the effort you've put into this, Jane, and like I suggested before, I think we really should look at something higher than that and raising the cap. I don't know what exactly that is, but this is completely worthwhile in my book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And to be clear, when we raise the cap, that would be the item number 5, but it does not change currently item number 1, which is the total is $5,000 either way. So if we raise the cap, we aren't necessarily raising the amount. So if we raise it to $2,000, say, we would help 2.5 businesses if they were to use the full amount. Just a point of clarity. I'm very in favor of this program. I just want to make sure people understand raising the cap doesn't necessarily change the budget that was approved last month.
Okay, yeah. When I said raise the cap, I meant throw a lot more money at this because our house is on fire.
That's what I was agreeing to as well.
So Paul and Scott, you're suggesting spending more than the $5,000 budget allocation.
Yes, ma'am.
Ran into some issues.
Anyone else have comments on that?
Oh,
Kate, Mary.
I have a different comment, so I'll wait.
Okay. Mary, Jack.
Yeah, I would be in favor of looking at raising the total amount if we could pull that from reserves. I assume based on our budget that we would have the ability to do that. But that's something that maybe we could come back next month to explore. The one question that I had that was not related to the budget, and I do thank you for this presentation and the research you've done, Jane. I'm wondering if there are, we've gotten calls from members about this, and one person and company in particular has a franchise that's located within the zone, but they themselves are not. They have multiple franchises around town. So I just think that we need to figure out like scenarios like that where we might be able to support that kind of organization. And then also, I really think that businesses not only need the funding, but need information about where they can go to get this kind of training, and whatever marketing publicity is done, I think needs to include that information as well.
Mary, to your first point, whether it's a franchise or not does not factor into BUEA participation. That is, if the retail address is in the enterprise zone, they're eligible to apply for personal property deduction through the EASID program, and that makes them a zone business. So it's a little different than how we define and think about local businesses, but really it's that zone address that triggers it, so they would be eligible.
Kate, did you want to jump in at this point, or?
Yeah, thanks. It's a little bit piggybacking on Mary's point. potentially. Just like the DEI trainings I've done across major organizations, like a big part of it is folks like starting, like learning a framework and a language. So everyone is speaking the same language and like you can talk about it, right? And so, I mean, I think that's important in a business, but I also think it's really important like across our entire city. And I think it's a problem in Bloomington that we're all learning different things and different words mean different things to a lot of people. And so I wonder if like, would it be possible if we offer this through a specific provider? I mean, that would take, you know, more time, research, potentially like an RFQ or something, but just so like we start as a city to all speak the same language.
Shatoya, if she's still here, might want to weigh in on this, but Kate, I left this open-ended really specifically because there's a corollary in the city budget that is the toolkit. I don't know if you remember that item within the ESD budget. It was also very small, but that will be more directed, and I'm working with Shatoya and Beverly on that, and I think that will end up being something that has, you know, content associated with it and will be more specific. And so with this program, it allows the business to do their own self-assessment because businesses may be at different developmental stages in terms of their processes and their training, what they include in their training manuals. I think some may be more educated in this area than others. And so the BUEA isn't coming in and telling them where their weaknesses are. I absolutely agree with your point, you know, 100% that we have to have a common language and understanding, but I see that more as the role of the city and not of the BUEA to prescribe that. I really like that this is open-ended. So that's just context for why I wrote it that way, but obviously the board, you are the ones who decide and approve. So I think you should have this discussion. And I would be curious if Shatoya is here, if she has feedback on that.
I don't see her on the call anymore.
Okay.
Today.
Okay, thanks.
So Kate, did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it answers it. I definitely understand, like, of course, businesses each have their own unique needs. I wasn't saying that, like, I think we should have a specific program, but that if we worked with one organization, they could help every business meet those needs. And like, they would then just be coming at it from a language that organization uses. So it would still be, I think, pretty, I mean, I don't know, pretty open-ended where they would be like a full service, right? For whatever, like some of those variety of outcomes down there. But I mean, I haven't looked into it beyond the organizations that the city is looking at, I guess, for like the citywide training.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it sounds like there is support to explore the opportunity to put more money into this really worthy, in my opinion, and several others here, into this really worthy program. So I think the suggestion I'm hearing, I don't know who said it, but maybe for Jane to come back after she looks at some of the numbers and make a recommendation as to how much more than $5,000 can we add to this, knowing, of course, that we would pass a resolution to, I don't know, go over our budget, which would allow Jane to exceed that budget amount that we approved previously. But with a recommendation of the dollar amount and any other sort of tweaks to the baseline cap, etc. Is that what folks want to do at this point? And we revisit it again next month with a look forward to taking a vote on this. Okay, I'm seeing some nodding heads.
Sounds good to me, thanks.
Okay. Okay, well, Jane, thank you. If you could work on that, both the amount you think we could exceed, taking into account our overall budget, what can we afford to spend
Yeah.
knowing that there is support here to spend more than that. And then given that higher amount, what would your recommendation be for a baseline cap increase, and taking into account the comments Kate shared in terms of how that money, that investment could be activated in the community in the most effective and valuable way?
Yeah, great. I'm happy to do that. And
Great.
thanks for taking the time, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. It's really valuable work, and you did a great job on this report. So thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, I think that takes us to the end of our agenda. I'm scrolling back up here. Any unfinished business or general discussion?
Just to point out that some work is being done on the Standard Oil building, which we did facade grants on, and the sign has come down on Metropolitan Printing Company. I don't know what that means, so it's not all bad news. Chin up.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the boots on the ground report. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, well, thank you all for your time today. We will adjourn and look forward to Julie being back next month. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks you. Bye-bye.